I'm President and CEO Steve Stivers of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. I'm lucky to have with us today our Secretary of State, Frank LaRose. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Steve.
Great to have you.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Well, you are our first. This is the first of our video series. And, what I thought I'd start with is talk to us about what brought you to a life of public service.
Much like you, my experience started with service in the military. I was inspired by my Boy Scout leader. In fact, an amazing man. We just laid him to rest last year at 98 years old. He had a terrific run. And as a kid, I got to hear stories around the campfire at Camp Manitowoc in the Cuyahoga Valley about liberating a concentration camp. He was a World War II veteran. As a young infantry officer, he liberated one of the first concentration camps. He was part of the Normandy invasion. He spoke French, and so they made him part of the OSS. And you know your military history, you understand that was sort of the forerunner of the modern day special operations forces as well as the intelligence community in this country. And so he had an amazing set of experiences. And from the age of probably 10, 11, 12 years old, I knew I wanted to be like Bill Miller when I grew up. I enlisted in the Army when I was 18 and never looked back. I had a great time. Got to serve all over the world. As you know, I serve as a reservist still to this day. But even though I got a great education in the Army, education in practical matters like leadership, I thought it was time for a formal education, and so I went to Ohio State, earned a business degree while I was at Ohio State, and got involved working on campaigns. In fact, volunteered on one of your campaigns when I was a college student at OSU. And what it showed me is that I had an interest in this. I spent years in the armed forces carrying out the public policy decisions that our leaders make. And I was really intrigued by getting involved myself. And so I had a business degree from Ohio State, and my head was telling me to go earn a living in the private sector, and that would have been a great way to go. But my heart was telling me to run for public office. I'm glad I followed my heart. It's an odd way to earn a living, as you know, and sometimes can be pretty hard on the family. But I've decided that I enjoy this, and so I had the chance to serve in the state Senate. I was elected in a, quote, unwinnable seat. I ran as a Republican in deeply blue Summit County, where the Democrat had a sort of baked-in 5-point advantage right off the start, but I was able to win that in 2010, spent 8 years in the state Senate. During that time, especially with the term limits that we have in the state legislature, I built a level of expertise and credibility in elections issues. That became kind of my focus. It was a natural fit because at the time, John Husted was Secretary of State. He's now our Lieutenant Governor. John asked me to work with him on a bill to improve overseas military voting, and I was the only veteran in the Senate at the time, and so as a result of working on that, I became the go-to guy on elections issues, worked on making our elections more secure and accessible. And so when his term limit came up in 2018, it was an obvious choice for me anyway to run for that office. I'm glad I did. It's been a really interesting 3.5 years, and I'm happy that I've been able to be that steady hand on the rudder as we've worked through some pretty unprecedented circumstances.
Absolutely. Well, you talked a little bit about elections. I think everybody knows the Secretary of State oversees elections.
Yeah.
Something a lot of people may not know is that the Secretary of State is sort of the first stop for people starting a business in Ohio. Can you talk a little bit about what the Secretary of State's office does, given that you're at the Chamber of Commerce, to help people that want to start or grow a business in Ohio?
As a fellow military man, you know it's all got to start with mission. You got to know what the mission is. Everybody from the most junior private to the most senior general has to know what the mission is, and so everybody can work to accomplish that mission. The mission of this office is really just two things. We're the office that helps people vote. I serve as the Chief Elections Officer. We're also the office that helps people start a business, and those two missions are things that really connected with me. I've seen people risk their lives to cast a ballot in places like Kosovo and Iraq. And I know how powerful the voice of free people can be and what a remarkable thing that is. But the role of being the front door for business is something that also really made me want to run for this office. My family's journey, like so many Ohioans, began 90 years ago when my great-grandfather immigrated from Italy. He had a dream and a work ethic, but not much more. In those days, he sent paper down to Columbus, waited weeks for it to come back, and it had a seal from the Ohio Secretary of State. And when he opened that envelope, it said, "Congratulations, LaRose, you're a business owner now." And what a remarkable thing that is for this Italian immigrant to be able to live his American dream of being an entrepreneur. And to this day, there are over 200 people in Northeast Ohio that work in the business that he started, and it has provided a livelihood for thousands. And so that inspires me. We want to just not just be the place where you start your business. Of course, we get you those articles of incorporation. We get them accurately and quickly. Ohio charges the lowest fee of any state in the Midwest, just $99 to start a business. And when some states, as we speak, are taking months to return your articles of incorporation, we can generally do it within 24 hours. We pride ourselves on that. But that's just the blocking and tackling, to use the football analogy. We have to do that stuff right. I've viewed this office as an opportunity to be a voice for entrepreneurs. As you know, there's nothing small about small business. The stat I've heard is that something like 75% of Ohioans work for a small business. And so we've tried to be an advocate not only across the street at the State House, which you guys do a lot of as well, but also to help people when they want to begin that journey. So we do classes. We partner with groups like libraries, or we work with the Urban League. We work with others around the state to offer classes about how to start a business. We work with local chambers of commerce quite a bit to offer, a Thursday night class where you can come and learn how do you start a business. And then again, the advocacy that we've done at the State House has resulted in reducing the burdens, taking away red tape and bureaucracy so that Ohio can be that business-friendly state that we want to be.
That's great. Well, in 2021, we had a record number of new businesses started. I think we also had a record in 2020.
Yeah.
Do you think that is the beginning of signs of an economic recovery and an economic resurgence in Ohio? What does that tell you about Ohio and what's going on here? Or is it just people going out on their own, starting their own business, not being an employee anymore? Do you have any insight into what's going on with that record number of new business filings?
It tells you that Ohio entrepreneurs are optimistic about the future of our state, the trajectory that we're on. They know that engaging in the free market economy is a great way to do something useful in your community, create generational wealth that you can pass on to the next generation. As you said, we've had two record-breaking years. We're really proud of that. Think about back to 2020. In March of 2020, the whole world changed. None of us were around for the Spanish flu, right? So none of us knew what is it like to live and work and try to grow a business in the midst of a global pandemic. And I remember saying to my team right around the middle part of March that we're just going to see business filings fall off. Let's just get ready for that. We thought that who's going to be so courageous to start a business in the midst of all of this uncertainty? As you know, one of the worst things for business is uncertainty. This pandemic created epic levels of uncertainty, not to mention challenges with workforce and all kinds of things. And sure enough, for a couple weeks, there was a dip in new business filings. But then something happened in April and May and June. We started to see the numbers go up, up, up. And what it reminded me is that never bet against the Ohio entrepreneur. What it reminded me is that Ohio's entrepreneurs were bringing to the fight the same grit and creativity and determination that they always have. And by the end of 2020, we'd broken the previous record. Over 171,000 new businesses formed in 2020. And we thought, that's a high water mark. We'll never pass that. Sure enough, in 2021, Ohio's entrepreneurs stepped up again. We had 196,000 new businesses formed.
Wow.
Now, economists will tell you that there's a lot of factors you look at to judge the overall health of the economy, right? We know that some of those new businesses may never go on to become profitable. That's what economists call creative destruction, that idea that the economy is sort of like a big science experiment, trying what works, and what works succeeds, and what doesn't work fails. And so there are a lot of things to look at to judge whether the economy is overall successful or not, but the bottom line is this. With record-breaking years, 2 years in a row, Ohioans know that engaging in the free market economy, engaging in the business life of this state is a good way to chart your course forward.
I think that's great. And here at the Chamber, our goal is to have economic opportunity for all. Yep. How are we doing it, spreading that out among all different parts of the state, the demographics of the state? Do you guys have any information on how the subpopulations are doing in that business creation? Is it equitable, or is it just kind of, in certain regions or certain populations?
Yeah, the growth in Ohio has been faster in certain regions than others. I think we know that. But we have seen growth throughout the state and throughout all sectors. Now, it's important to recognize I'm constrained in what we can ask people. When you get your articles of incorporation from us, the law says the things I can ask you. But what we started doing is creating an optional survey. And people don't have to fill that out. But if they tell us that they're a female-owned business, a minority-owned business, a veteran-owned business, or a disabled Ohioan who owns a a business. We want to find that out from them so that we can connect them with some of the services that exist. This came from a series of small business roundtables. At this point, we've done dozens and dozens of them throughout the state, some focused specifically on the minority community, others generally for any business owner. One of the questions that came up is, why didn't I find out about this stuff until years later? I had a business owner say, you know, all of these services that exist to help a small business, I wish I'd have known about that when I was getting started. So the idea for us was,
now you do the optional survey. And
the day we give them their articles of incorporation, let's give them a menu of options as well. And then, you know, we focused on minority business opportunities as well. And there have been a number of real success stories in that. Just a few years ago, 2 years ago, the Cincinnati region was recognized as the best destination in the country for minority business owners.
Wow.
We want to spread that out all over the state, and that's one of the reasons why we got a bill done, signed by the governor just a couple weeks ago.
We supported it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that support from the chamber meant a lot to help remove some of the barriers so that minority business owners can,
You can have one
focus on
certification
growing their
statewide
business.
instead of
That's it.
getting certified in every city.
Imagine having to
Absolutely.
get a driver's license in each
In every
county.
city,
It would be,
yeah, every
it would be
county,
a
yeah,
nightmare.
that's crazy.
So thankfully, we've been able to take that burden off the table so that these great business owners can focus on
great.
growing their enterprise.
Well, that's great. Well, we've explored a little bit about what you do for business. Everybody knows that you do a lot
Yeah.
in the election side. We're in a special year this year. We have a redistricting and a reapportionment. Can you walk us through the redistricting process
Yeah.
and how it works? It's been a little messy this year.
It has been. As you know, the voters of Ohio, in 2 different constitutional amendments last decade, created a new process for drawing district lines. The census happens in the year ending in 0. The line drawing happens in the year ending in 1. It's important to understand, too, that we started at a great disadvantage because the U.S. Census Bureau was almost a half a year late getting us the data that we needed to start that process. In fact, only after the Attorney General filed a lawsuit did the Census Bureau finally get it to us. We had a very compressed timeline to get new districts passed. We passed district lines in the commission, the Redistricting Commission, the 7-member body that's empowered in the Ohio Constitution to do this, that we thought were constitutional. The Ohio Supreme Court decided otherwise, and that's created more delay. In fact, almost 6 months cumulatively of extra delay created by the Ohio Supreme Court. I disagree with the decisions that they've made, but they're the Supreme Court and I'm not. So here we are, really just days before early voting is set to begin. April 5th is the date that early voting should begin in Ohio, and the election is May 3rd. That is set by the General Assembly. The fact that we are ready to go to run that election is a miracle. It's not a miracle, though. It's hard work. I have the pleasure of leading what I consider the most professional, the most skilled team of elections officials in the country. That's not just what I'm saying. Other states recognize Ohio as that gold standard. The bipartisan men and women who work at our 88 county boards of elections are incredible at what they do. And because of their determination, we're ready to conduct that election on May 3rd. The question is, will that still proceed? Will the state legislature choose to change the date, which they have the power to do, and what will be on the ballot? Because as it currently sits, we have had the most recent set of state legislative maps invalidated. That creates, again, some challenges and some real concerns, and I think at this point, it's entirely possible that the state legislature looks at moving the date of the election. But again, that's up to them entirely.
Sure. No, really interesting, everything that's going on. So obviously lots of logistical challenges for boards of elections, for the Secretary of State's office. You feel confident that the May 3rd primary, assuming it happens and the legislature doesn't change the date, that the boards of elections have what they need and can administer this election?
We'll be ready to go. We have a saying in the military, I'm sure you're familiar with this, that you sweat in training so you don't bleed in battle. It just means that you do your preparation, or as a Boy Scout, the motto is be prepared, right? We've made sure that our boards of elections are prepared. It's been a ton of hard work. I think over the years, people have maybe gotten this sense that elections administration is easy. That's because the boards make it look easy. That's the mark of a professional. But the work of running an election is the work of tens of thousands of people. Think about this. On election day, our polling locations, and that's close to 4,000 polling locations throughout the state, are staffed by over 55,000 of our fellow Ohioans that do this work. The logistics of running election is humongous, but also the complexity of it. People think, well, I get my ballot. Well, remember that in a county like Franklin or Cuyahoga or Hamilton, a large urban county, there may be well over 1,000 different ballot types, because you may get one ballot,
Right.
but somebody just 6 blocks away may need to get a different ballot
Different
because they're in a
district or
different
whatever.
school
Sure,
district
yeah.
or a different liquor option on their ballot or whatever else. So the complexity of doing this is immense, but the boards of elections have risen to the occasion, and the state legislature has stepped up to authorize some funding for overtime, for bringing in additional, temp staff and that kind of thing. And we are ready to conduct the May 3rd election if that ends up being the date of it.
Great. And I know that for the May 3rd election, it's too late to register to vote, but if you want to vote in the fall, you can still register to vote. How would somebody register to vote through your office?
Actually, the deadline is 30 days before the
it's 30
election.
days, so it's not too late.
So you have until April 4th
Got it.
to register to vote, and then early voting begins on April 5th. The easiest way to remember this is early voting begins, and the day before that is when the window closes for voter registration. But either way, we make it really easy. One of the bills that I did in the legislature was to create online voter registration. So you can go to voteohio.gov. That's the official website. Remember, it's .gov, voteohio.gov, and you can get registered to vote right there. And I would encourage anybody that's watching this, these are all folks that are engaged as chamber members and that kind of thing, but remember the young people in your life. There's probably somebody in your household or a neighbor kid, maybe the person that babysits for you, that's turning 18 this year. Remind them to get registered to vote, and while you're there at voteohio.gov, you can actually take the next step and sign up to be a poll worker. As I said, it takes 55,000 people to man the polls on Election Day. We need good Ohioans from both parties to do it, and the added benefit is you'll become an election expert in a time where there's all kinds of false information. If you're getting your information about elections administration from YouTube or from Facebook or whatever else, you're probably not getting a straight story. Be an elections official, you'll become an expert. You'll be the one that can tell your neighbors things like voting machines are never connected to the internet. Of course, we always audit every election. Everything is overseen by a bipartisan team. It'll empower you to be a source of accurate information for your friends and family.
That's great. Well, Frank, thanks for being here. You heard it from Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Sign up and vote. Sign up and become a poll worker. Get involved. Frank, thanks for being here. Thanks for what you do for our business community and what you do for safe and secure elections.
Thanks for what you and your colleagues do to be the voice of business at the State House and throughout the state. You guys are doing important work.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us for our elected officials video series.